Hello, students, and welcome back to semester 2 here at TASM. We're going to start out with cells. We're following that pre-AP biology curriculum. This should be a pretty easy quiz. It's basically just a review of cells that many of you have had before, and we're going to use that to be able to talk about 3 phenomena. And those phenomena are going to be cystic fibrosis, diabetes, and cancer with Terry Fox. And here they are. All right, so I hope you're getting excited for the Terry Fox run. I know I am. And getting ready for that head shave, trying to grow out this hair for it. Okay, let's dive right in. This is some questions that you should be able to answer. So I've got 6 questions here. Remember, it's a quiz. It's not as long as a test. So can you answer the following? Pause the video. What's the cell theory? Why are most cells small in size? Can you compare and contrast a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell, a plant and an animal cell? Go back over the Pogles that you did. Can you identify the structure and function of all the organelles, especially in the Pogle towards the second half? All right. And what are some jobs of the cell? And so just like you have jobs that you need to do, a cell does as well. And so a big one is making proteins. How does that happen? Another one is capturing and using energy and storing it. Storing and recycling materials, and then supporting movement. And those are all things that you do as well. All right, let's jump in. So what is the cell theory? Well, I showed you that TED Ed clip that was funny, and then I told you also that there were some crazy sad stories along with it too. Do you remember the cell theory? You do not need to know any of these old dead guys. You just need to know what the cell theory is, and here we go. All living things are made of one or more cells. Cells are the basic unit of structure and function in an organism. That's the one that tends to confuse students. It just means this. Cells are the smallest living unit in all organisms. Anything below a cell is not going to be alive. All right, and then a bunch of cells together make us. Cells come only from the reproduction of existing cells. They don't just appear out of thin air. Okay. Why are cells small? You should tell your parents and your friends about the lab that we did in class. It's a fun one. So we have over 100 trillion cells in our bodies. So that means they have to be really small. And they're small so that materials can easily pass in and out of them. We need to get in nutrients, we need to get in oxygen, and we need to get out waste from cells. And also so it doesn't overtax the DNA in a cell. Right? If a cell was to be really big, the amount of DNA would stay the same as in the nucleus, but it would have to be transcribed a whole lot to make a lot of proteins and do a lot of stuff, and that would overtax the DNA. Here's an example of cell size on a logarithmic scale. So just what I want you to remember is, right, we finished up last semester dealing with biochemistry and dealing with proteins and lipids. So those are smaller than a cell. Cells are made up of proteins, lipids, nucleic acids, and carbohydrates that we learned about. They also make them. Proteins and lipids and carbohydrates by themselves are not alive, but when they're inside of a cell, that cell has the emergent property of life. All right. Okay, here's the lab we did. We made different cubes out of agar. Inside the agar, I had put bromomethyl blue, an indicator. I put a little bit of Windex, which is basic, to make it turn blue. So the cells were really blue. And then we put them in vinegar. And you can see that in the presence of an acid, they change colors to yellow. Check out the high school newsletter. We put some pictures in there of you doing the lab. And so what cells are trying to maximize is their ratio of surface area to volume. So look at this little cube. The surface area is 6. The volume is 1. That'd be a ratio of 6:1. In this cube, which is double the size of the first one, the surface area, it is bigger, it's 24, but so is the volume. The volume is much bigger, it's 8. 24 to 8 is 3:1. Notice how 3:1 is smaller than 6:1. That's what messes up some students. So as the cell gets bigger, the surface area to volume ratio decreases. One more time. As the cell gets bigger, the ratio of surface area to volume decreases. All right, and this holds for all cell shapes. Same thing with a sphere or a circle, etc. Here, notice it's gone down to 2:1. So Logically, we can't have a cell be too big because it wouldn't be able to get the oxygen all the way in. Think of it this way. It would take forever to get the oxygen in, and these mitochondria on the inside wouldn't be able to work. All right, it would take forever to get the waste out. So that's why cells have to be small. Cells have adaptations. I'm sorry, I thought I had a slide of it. To increase their surface area, such as your intestinal cells, right? And they have little villi to go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down to give them more surface area. Same with cells in your lungs, right? They have lots of infolding as well. All right, so cells want to maximize their surface area to volume ratio. One thing we went over in class is why does volume always overtake surface area in number? It's because volume is cubed, whereas surface area is squared. So something that's cubed or raised to the third power will be larger than something that's squared. All right, here's a nice little overview for you. Most of you knew this from middle school, right? Cells that are prokaryotic, pro means before the nucleus. They are bacteria. They have no nucleus, no membrane-bound organelles. They do have stuff inside of them, right? They have ribosomes and DNA, and they have a cell wall, and they have methods of movement like a flagella, which is a tail, or cilia. From prokaryotes evolved eukaryotes, or cells that have a nucleus, right? And a nucleus means that it's a double membrane-bound organelle that's going to house the DNA. It protects the DNA. The DNA never leaves the nucleus. Instead, it sends messages out to make proteins. Eukaryotic cells include plant and animal cells. So they have a nucleus and they have organelles. Okay, from that little review, can you go ahead and compare and contrast prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells? Here's a good picture of them. This would be about 1/10 the size of this cell, or even smaller. So eukaryotic cells are bigger. Eukaryotic cells are younger. Prokaryotic cells are older. Right? Eukaryotic cells have more, they have membrane-bound organelles, such as the Golgi bodies, the endoplasmic reticulum, the nucleus, the nucleolus, mitochondria, etc. What do they have in common? In common, they both have DNA. They're both cells, and they both have cell membranes. Even though this has a cell wall, it also has a cell membrane. So I would suggest making a Venn diagram to go over this. Okay, can you compare and contrast plant and animal cells? Well, they have many of the same organelles. They're each going to have a nucleus. They're each going to have an endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes, lysosomes, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria. But what a plant cells have that is different is they have chloroplasts. Yes, the chloroplasts. And chloroplasts are what engage in photosynthesis. They're able to capture sunlight and convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose. They also have much larger vacuoles. Right? So when you forget to water your plant, this shrinks, and that's what causes this plant to wilt. When you do water them, this fills up. All right, they also have a cell wall, which animal cells do not. That cell wall helps to give them structure and support as well. Now, they can communicate with other plant cells through holes in a cell wall called plasmodesmata, and that's something you can learn about in AP Bio with me. All right, so in class on Thursday and Sunday, we said, well, what does cells do? What are their jobs? Okay, and so one of them is going to be capturing and storing energy. Can you describe how a cell captures and stores energy? Describe both a plant cell and an animal cell. All right, hopefully you got that, and I'd like to acknowledge that I got this slide from Miss Foglia, who posted all of our work on explorebiology.com. And so here you can see that plants are going to have a chloroplast. They're going to be able to make glucose. They're going to be able to make energy, or going to make sugars, which have chemical energy in them. You have to break down that sugar into a usable form of energy. And we went over this in class. The usable form of energy for eukaryotic animal cells and plant cells is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Right? And when you break that third phosphate off, it becomes ADP, and it gives off some energy that can power a reaction. So the two that I really want you to know are mitochondria and chloroplast. deal with working with energy. What are some other items that are kind of also lumped in there, right? The cell membrane, because we're going to have to get glucose inside the cell. So we're learning about cells, and we're going to learn about diabetes. And diabetes is a disease where you can't get the glucose into the cell, right? So insulin is it's a protein-based hormone that's going to signal the cell to open up and take in the glucose, but it's not working in type 2 diabetes, and in type 1 diabetes, it's just not made. All right, lysosomes are organelles that help to digest foods, and then I believe I accidentally covered it up right here. Oh, vacuoles and vesicles to move stuff around, and vacuoles can store food, which in essence means storing energy. Okay, this is from Khan Academy, just giving another good picture of a cell for you to go over. So can you point out now in here the items involved in the capture and storage of energy in this animal cell? All right, let's see. Did you get that it's going to be in the mitochondria, right? They have more than one mitochondria. In fact, cells that specialize in energy production are going to have a lot of them, or that need to move around a bunch. And it's also going to deal with the cell membrane, getting in food, lysosomes to help digest it, and vesicles to move it around. Right? Don't think that all cells look like the one I just showed you. Right? Cells, they have different structures to match their function. These all have a nucleus, well, except for a red blood cell. They give it up so they can carry more oxygen. But in essence, what I'm trying to say is that they have the organelles, but they might have different amounts of them or different structures so that they can do different stuff. All right, and you're made up of lots of different types of cells to make you unique. And they're organized at different levels. So a bunch of cells together can make up a tissue, which can make up an organ, which can make up an organ system. And here you can see an example. So let's do the heart, right? There might be a heart cell. A bunch of heart cells together can make heart tissue, which can make the heart, which can participate in the respiratory system. So let's see. Another question, I forgot to make a slide for it. Which organelles are used in protein synthesis? All right, and in making proteins. So here, let's follow it. It's called the endomembrane system. Let's see if I can draw. So here's going to be the nucleus. So we're going to have some type of signal come in and say, hey, we need to make a protein. The nucleus is going to send mRNA to the ribosomes. The ribosomes are these little dots. The ribosomes are going to synthesize amino acids together to make a protein. The protein will travel through the endoplasmic reticulum. These are called, you can think about it like a hallway. It will then be put into a vesicle. Think about it like outer space. It's going to be in a vesicle, and it's going to go to the Golgi bodies. Here in the Golgi bodies, the protein is modified. And this makes proteins really unique, and that's why we have so many different ones of them. So nucleus, hallway, post office, and from the post office, it's going to get shipped out. Right? It's going to be in a vesicle. It's going to go fuse with the cell membrane, and it's going to be shipped out of the cell. So that is protein synthesis. And remember, I told you in class there are 4 jobs. So we did energy. We just did protein synthesis. Let's do another one, structure and support. Well, what makes you able to stand up as a human? You're going to have a skeleton. Well, a cell has the same thing. So they have a cytoskeleton, and that cytoskeleton is going to give it shape, and then it's also going to give it support. It also has the cell membrane to let items in and out. All right, and then last but not least, hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. And then the last one was storage, right? And so it can store items in a vacuole. You can think about that with plant cells. All right, so what are 4 jobs of the cell? Cells need energy, capture, and storage. They need to be able to have structure and support. They need to be able to make proteins and send them out of the cell. If they need proteins within the cell, that's going to be on free-floating ribosomes. And then lastly, they also need to store stuff, and that's in the vacuoles. And go ahead, I would encourage you to study the orange paper I gave you, where you're going to put prokaryote, eukaryote, plant and animal. You're going to list all the organelles on one side. Then on the other side, you're going to do the 4 jobs of the cell and practice through that. Okay, take care and good luck on this first quiz.